All right, boys and girls, let's get back into it. Welcome back to school. We're going to start a new lesson today. It's about solving inequalities with multiplication and division. So you can see right off the bat that we are given this problem and we are supposed to solve the inequality, right here. Right here, solve the hang on. Solve the inequality. Negative 3x is less than 21. Let's write it down. Negative 3x is less than 21. Now you know how to solve this. We're not going to add or subtract from both sides of the inequality. We are going to divide by the coefficient. Say it with me. Divide by the coefficient. That's negative 3. It's the number in front of the variable, as we know. So we're going to, on both sides, divide by that number, negative 3. And the only one trick about inequalities, when you divide or multiply by a negative number, and you might want to write this down in your notes, I strongly suggest it, write this down. When you divide or multiply by a negative number, and only when you do that, you have to switch the sign of the inequality. You have to switch the way it faces. So we started off with less than, right? We started off with less than, and now we are going to write greater than because we are dividing by a negative number on both sides. So what does this yield for us? It yields the equation x, because we know negative 3 over negative 3 is 1, x, and x is greater than, that's the important part, we have to switch that, and 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. So now we know that the answer is going to be answer choice C. Can we all see that? And we're going to fill in our answer, negative 7, in the box. Okay, good job, boys and girls. Moving on, we are going to tackle this problem, which says m divided by negative 4, hang on one second, is greater than 5. So m divided by negative 4 is greater than 5. Now, how do we use the inverse of division? You see on the left-hand side right here, we're using division. We're dividing m by negative 4 right here, right? You see this right here? So how do we do the inverse of dividing by negative 4? You got it. We multiply by negative 4. So we're going to do that on both sides of the equation, of the inequality. We're going to multiply by negative 4 on that side and by negative 4 on that side. So, parentheses mean multiplication. And the reason we do that, of course, is you can see that when we multiply negative 4 times m and then divide by negative 4, the negative 4s are just going to cancel. It's not a coincidence. That happened because we multiplied specifically by negative 4. We wanted those negative 4s to cancel. That's why we do it. And that leaves 1m, so we write down m. But did we multiply by a negative number? Yes, so the inequality has to switch the way it's facing. Okay, it goes from greater than, right there, to less than, right there. Okay? And 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. So we know now that the answer is m is less than that one, and then we'll fill in negative 20 in our box. Great job, boys and girls. You're doing good. Now this one, what does it say? It says you had a bag of fruit snacks that you shared with 5 friends. Each of you got at least 2 fruit snacks. The inequality x divided by 6 is greater than or equal to 2 because, remember, boys and girls, when we say at least, we mean greater than or equal to. Okay? So that's the model, and then it says solve the inequality to find the number of fruit snacks that were in the bag. So let's write it down. X divided by 6. I'm not going to use the division symbol like it shows. I'm going to use the fraction bar. And is greater than or equal to 2. Now, we know from the last problem that all we have to do is multiply both sides by 6. If we were dividing by 100, we'd multiply by 100. If we were dividing by negative 3/4, we'd multiply by negative 3/4. Whatever will cancel that number out. 6 divided by 6 is 1. That's what we want. And that leaves x, but we did not use a negative. This number was not negative, so we don't have to switch the way the inequality is facing. It's still facing the same way. And 2 times 6 is 12. So there you go. There were at least 12 snacks in the bag, and you can think that through for yourself. Okay? There's 6 people, and each of you got at least 2 fruit snacks. That means there had to be at least 12 of them in there. And that's what the inequality solution shows you. Moving on, boys and girls, you're doing a great job. Over the next 17 months, you have to read at least 51 books. And you have to read X books per month. So you have to read a certain number of books every month. The inequality 17x is greater than or equal to 51, because remember, at least means greater than or equal to. So it represents a situation, and now this problem wants us to solve the inequality. So let's take it. 17x is greater than or equal to 51. Now this problem is not like the last one because we're not dividing. We're actually multiplying right there in between the 17 and the x. So what's the inverse of multiplication? You know it, boys and girls. It is division. So we are going to divide on both sides of the inequality by 17. Why did we use 17? So that we can do this handy little thing. Cross out, cross out. Okay, 17 over 17 is 1. X, we still have x, and we did not divide by a negative, so the inequality is still facing the same way, still the same symbol, and 51 divided by 17 is 3. That means that we have to read at least 3 books per month, greater than or equal to 3. Okay, we are just rolling right along. This is hopefully pretty easy for you. Let's see, this says a type of fish for your aquarium costs $6 each, but you can spend at most $48. Now think, boys and girls, these words, at most, what kind of inequality does that mean? That means you can't go over 48. That means the greatest amount of money you can spend is $48. That means that the maximum is 48. So we know the inequality is going to look like that. Okay, whatever we write on the left has to be less, it can't be more than 48, okay? Oh, so hang on a second. Boys and girls, forgive me, I got confused. Okay, let me back up. If we can spend at most $48, that means whatever we spend has to be less than or equal to 48. My bad, just kidding, haha. It has to be less than 48. So, we know that fish cost $6 each, but we don't know how many fish we're going to buy. So 6 times the number of fish we buy has to be less than or equal to 48. Okay? And so now we can pick the right answer, and we can see clearly that it is this one, right? So let's go to the next part of the problem. And here it says, how many of these fish can you buy? So we go back to our inequality. We'll write it down again. It was 6f has to be less than or equal to 48, and we know we're going to divide on both sides by 6. Why do we do that, boys and girls? You know why. You should be able to tell me by now. So we can cross out the 6's. That's 1. F, that's what we want. We did not use a negative, so we don't have to switch the way the inequality is facing. And that is 8. So we can buy at most 8 fish. Okay, so pick your answers. Here we go. We are rolling right along still. And this is a challenge problem. Let's see if we can just tackle it really quick. It says you have a bag of X peanuts. You share the peanuts with 4 of your friends. Each of you gets no fewer than 25. So you all get at least, that's another way to say that. This means at least. No fewer than means at least. Okay, the inequality, it even gives it to you right here. 25 is less than x divided by 5. It models a situation, and it says graph the solutions. Well, first we have to solve the inequality. So if we take this inequality and write down the x divided by 5 first, like we're used to seeing it on the left-hand side, and then we write down the way the inequality is facing. The mouth is facing the x, right? So it's still facing the x just like it is above. And then 25 goes there. Now, how do we solve this? We have to multiply both sides of the inequality by 5. Do you remember that? We just did that. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Perfect. That means the solution is x. And we didn't divide or multiply by negative, so x is greater than, still greater than, 25 times 5 is 125. So we're looking for an open circle at 125, and if it's greater, if x is greater than 125, then the arrow has to be facing the right, to the right, has to go to the right. So it looks like this is our answer right there, right? Open circle at 125 with the arrow pointing to the right to the numbers that are greater than 125. Perfect. All right, boys and girls, we're almost done. Question 7 here says, solve the inequality, use pencil and paper. Describe how you know the direction of the inequality sign without solving. Well, okay, before we solve then, okay, without solving, are we going to have, let's take a look at this. Are we going to have to divide by a negative number? Yes, and that means the inequality is going to go from that to that. So we know right away that our answer choice has to be, which one? Look down below. It has to be this one, right? Because it's the only one with the proper inequality sign. Okay, so now let's go back a little bit and let's take our inequality and write it down, and we'll solve it. Maybe you already did it in your head if you're real bright and kind of working ahead. Negative 7x is greater than 28. So we are going to divide on both sides of the inequality by negative 7. And that because we do that because we want the inequality, we want the negative 7s to cancel. That's 1 and leaves x, but we divided by negative, so the inequality has to switch the way it's facing. And 28 divided by negative 7 is negative 4. So we knew it was going to be answer choice B, and now we know what to fill in the gray box, negative 4. All right, boys and girls, last question. Let's knock this out. This question says, Cynthia plans to build a treehouse that is 1/2 the size of Patricia's. Cynthia plans to make the area of her treehouse at least 14 square feet. Let's stop there. When you see the words at least, what does that mean in terms of an inequality? At least means more than. It can be 14 square feet, but it's going to be either 14 or something bigger. That's what at least means. So if we write down 14 over here, how do we say at least 14? That greater than or equal to 14. Okay? And we know 1/2 the size of Patricia's house is going to be greater than or equal to 14 square feet. That's the inequality. So now we can fill in part 1. Okay? And now we go to part 2 where we solve this. Let's write it down again. 1/2 x is greater than or equal to 14. And we know to get rid of this fraction, remember, we're multiplying right here by a fraction. To use the inverse of multiplying by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal, right? We're going to multiply both sides of this inequality by the reciprocal of that fraction. So we're going to do the same over here. I'm going to try and squeeze this in. 2/1. Okay. Didn't leave myself enough room. Hang on, let me do that again. Let me write that down a little bit better. Okay, 1/2 x is greater than or equal to 14. So on both sides of this inequality, we are going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2/1. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make 14/1 and multiply by 2/1. There we go. So 2/2 cancels, 1/1 cancels. That's why we do it. And we bring down x. We did not multiply or divide by negative, so the inequality stays facing the same way. And we know that 14 times 2 is 28. And 1 times 1 is 1, so 28/1 is just 28. So the area of Patricia's treehouse is at least 28 square feet. That's what it says. Good job, boys and girls. I hope you do well on this assignment. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me.